ever wake up like between 3 and 5 in the morning?
Yeah.
Not every day, but often enough to like notice it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to think it was just, bad sleep or whatever.
Right.
But the source material that we're diving into today suggests it could be something way more interesting.
Okay.
A divine invitation. It actually says that.
That's right. The source material even calls it the fourth watch, which, for anyone familiar with Scripture, carries a lot of weight in terms of spiritual significance.
Okay, color me intrigued.
Right.
But to be honest, when I'm jolted awake at 4 a.m., the last thing I'm thinking about is spiritual growth.
Yeah.
So help me understand what makes this time so special.
Well, the source material lays out
Okay.
3 key steps you can take during those early hours to transform them into spiritual breakthroughs. Kind of reframes those restless moments, doesn't it?
It totally does.
Yeah.
Okay, let's break it down.
Sure, what's the first step?
Step 1 is pray fervently.
The source dives into the idea of spiritual warfare being particularly active during this time.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Spiritual warfare. Like demons and angels battling it out while we're sleeping.
Yeah.
Is that really what we're talking about here?
That's what the source suggests, yeah.
Okay.
It even uses the analogy of the parable of the wheat and the weeds from Matthew 13.25,
Uh-huh.
where the enemy is sowing weeds among the wheat while everyone's asleep.
Wow.
Yeah. It frames these early hours as a time when we're most vulnerable,
Okay.
spiritually speaking,
Hmm.
and therefore a prime opportunity for the enemy to try and mess with us.
To be honest, the whole spiritual warfare thing has always felt a little intense to me.
Yeah, I can understand that.
But I guess when we're talking about those anxieties or negative thoughts that sometimes pop up at 3 a.m., it does
Yeah.
make you wonder.
Exactly. The source suggests that those unsettling feelings could actually be a sign we're being called to pray.
Oh, okay.
And not just for ourselves, but to intercede for others who might be struggling in that very moment.
So it's like we're being called to be spiritual watchmen, keeping an eye out for trouble.
That's a great way to put it. The source even quotes 2 Corinthians 10.4,
Okay.
which says, "The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God for the pulling down of strongholds." And it reminds us in Isaiah 54.17 that no weapon formed against you shall prosper, suggesting that prayer during this time is a powerful way to claim protection.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this fourth watch idea could actually be empowering rather than just scary.
Right.
But if we're dedicating this time to prayer, are we just supposed to be listing off our own needs and wants, or is there something more to it?
That's where step 2 comes in.
Okay.
Fellowship with God.
Okay.
The source presents this time as an opportunity to cultivate a deeper connection with the divine. Not just asking for things, but actually listening and being open to receiving guidance.
Okay, so it's less like a frantic 911 call to heaven.
Right.
And more like a quiet, intimate conversation.
Precisely. The source describes it as a scheduled meeting with the divine, a time to truly listen for God's voice.
That makes sense. But I have to admit, I'm not sure I've ever experienced that kind of clear communication with God. What does that even look like?
Yeah.
How do you know when you're actually hearing from God and not just, your own thoughts?
That's a great question, and one that the source actually addresses.
Huh.
It quotes Job 33.14 to 15,
Okay.
which says, "For God does speak now one way, now another, though no one perceives it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on people as they slumber in their beds." It's suggesting that God speaks in various ways, and often those messages come through most clearly when the world is quiet and our minds are still.
So it's like, while the rest of the world is sleeping, God is whispering.
Yeah.
But what kind of things is God whispering about? I mean, is it like big life-changing revelations or more subtle everyday guidance?
The source gives examples of people receiving all sorts of insights during this time, everything from inspiration for creative projects to solutions for challenging situations they've been facing, and even clarity in their decision-making. Almost like downloading information from a higher source.
Wow. I've definitely never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
It's not just about warding off evil, but also about tapping into a deeper level of wisdom and creativity.
Exactly. The source even suggests that these early morning hours can become a daily open heaven experience.
Right.
A time to receive direct guidance and step into a more collaborative relationship with the divine. Not just in a spiritual sense, but in every area of our lives.
Okay, I have to say, this is starting to sound a lot more appealing than just tossing and turning until my alarm goes off.
Yeah.
But we've only covered 2 steps so far. Pray fervently and fellowship with God.
Right.
What's the third step in this fourth watch transformation?
The third step focuses on the power of our words.
You mean like affirmations?
Okay.
I have to admit that kind of stuff usually makes me roll my eyes a little.
I hear you, but the source digs much deeper than typical self-help affirmations.
Okay.
It uses a powerful quote from Proverbs 18.21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. The idea is that what we speak during this time when we're in this heightened state of spiritual awareness can shape the entire trajectory of our day.
So are we talking about literally speaking miracles into existence? Like, I declare that I will win the lottery today, because that seems like a stretch even for me.
It's not about trying to manipulate outcomes or bend reality to our will.
Okay.
The source frames it as aligning ourselves with God's will for our lives and speaking those intentions out loud. It even uses the story of Joshua commanding the sun and moon to stand still as an example of the power our words can have when they're aligned with divine purpose.
Okay, but Joshua, he parted the Red Sea. Most of us are just trying to get through our to-do list without spilling coffee on ourselves.
Right.
Can regular people really tap into that kind of power?
The source seems to think so. It encourages us to claim blessings and protection for ourselves and others, to declare things like, today I walk in divine favor, or I am guided and protected by a power greater than myself.
Okay.
It's about shifting our mindset from one of fear and scarcity to one of faith and abundance.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
If we're already spending this time praying and connecting with God, it seems natural to extend that into speaking those intentions out loud.
Right.
But let's be honest, not everyone is going to be comfortable with this idea of making declarations. Some people might find it awkward or even a little too out there.
I think that's fair. The source acknowledges that this might feel strange at first, but it encourages us to start small and experiment with what feels authentic. Even just whispering a simple prayer of gratitude or speaking a blessing over our loved ones can be a powerful way to shift our energy and set the tone for the day.
So to recap, we've got these 3 key steps for transforming those 3 a.m. wake-up calls.
Right.
Pray fervently, fellowship with God, and speak life into our day. It's like a spiritual recipe for turning those potentially frustrating moments into something truly empowering.
Exactly. But there's one more important point the source emphasizes.
Okay.
All of these practices are most effective when they're rooted in a life of what it calls obedience and holiness.
Okay, now that sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah.
Does that mean we have to be perfect saints to benefit from this fourth watch experience?
Yeah.
Because if so, I'm out.
It's not about being perfect, no.
Okay.
The source is simply saying that our spiritual receptivity is enhanced when our actions are aligned with our values. It uses a quote from C.S. Lewis to illustrate this point.
Okay.
You cannot make men good by law, and without good men, you cannot have a good society. It's about recognizing that our inner world and our outer world are interconnected.
So it's like if we're living a life that's full of negativity, drama, and bad decisions, it's going to be harder to tap into that peaceful, connected state we're talking about.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about judgment or guilt, but rather about recognizing that our actions have consequences,
Okay.
both internally and externally.
Okay, I'm following you, but let's be realistic for a moment.
Yeah.
Waking up at 3 a.m. is hard,
It is.
even if we're convinced of the benefits. How do we actually make this work in the real world?
Right.
Most of us are struggling just to get enough sleep as it is.
You're right. It's not always easy.
Right.
The source acknowledges that staying awake during this time can be a challenge, but it also offers a quote from C.S. Lewis that really resonated with me.
Okay.
You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like a gentle reminder that we can always choose to try something new, to experiment with different ways of being in the world.
Yeah.
But practically speaking, where do we even begin?
The source suggests starting small, maybe committing to just 10 minutes of quiet reflection or prayer at first,
Okay.
and then gradually increasing that time as it feels more natural. It also emphasizes the importance of being consistent. Even if we can't wake up at 3 a.m. every day, even just a few times a week can make a difference.
That's actually really encouraging.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this all or nothing super intense spiritual practice.
Right.
We can ease into it and find what works best for us.
Exactly. It's about listening to our own inner guidance and honoring our own rhythms. And remembering that even small steps can lead to significant transformations over time.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired.
Good.
But before we get too carried away with all this fourth watch magic,
Yeah.
let's take a moment to bring it back to the listener.
Okay.
What are some key takeaways they can apply to their own lives?
So, for anyone listening who, like you, has always seen those 3 a.m. wake up calls as a nuisance,
Right.
what are the biggest takeaways from this deep dive?
Yeah. Is there something we should be doing differently?
I think the biggest shift is in perspective.
Okay.
Instead of seeing those early hours as lost sleep, the source material invites us to view them as a unique opportunity, a time for deeper spiritual connection and personal growth that we might otherwise miss.
So it's not necessarily about forcing ourselves to wake up at 3 a.m. every day,
Right.
but more about being open to the possibility that something special might be happening during those hours.
Exactly. And if you do find yourself awake during that fourth watch,
Uh-huh.
remember those 3 key steps we've been talking about?
Okay.
Pray fervently,
Uh-huh.
fellowship with God,
Uh-huh.
and speak life into your day.
It's almost like a spiritual toolkit for navigating those early hours.
Yeah, I like that.
But you mentioned earlier that these practices are most effective when they're grounded in a life of obedience and holiness.
Right.
What does that actually look like in a practical sense?
It's not about striving for perfection,
Okay.
but rather about making choices that align with our values and intentions.
Mm.
It's about recognizing that the way we live our lives impacts our ability to connect with the divine.
So it's like we're creating a more receptive environment within ourselves.
Yep.
A space where those whispers of wisdom and guidance can actually be heard.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference over time.
Okay.
Start with those 10 minutes of prayer or meditation and see how that feels. Pay attention to the quality of your thoughts and actions throughout the day.
Okay.
The more we cultivate that inner alignment, the more those fourth watch experiences can become a source of true transformation.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's not about adding more stress or pressure to our already busy lives,
Right.
but about approaching those quiet hours with a sense of curiosity and possibility. Who knows what insights or breakthroughs might be waiting for us?
And that's what makes this source material so compelling.
Yeah.
It challenges us to rethink our assumptions about sleep,
Uh-huh.
about time, and about our own potential for spiritual growth.
Mhm.
It invites us to view those early morning hours not as a burden, but as a gift.
A gift that might just hold the key to a deeper connection with ourselves, with the divine, and with the world around us. It's definitely something to think about the next time you find yourself staring at the ceiling at 4 a.m.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Okay.
We hope this exploration has sparked some new insights and inspired you to view those early morning hours in a fresh light.
Maybe those seemingly disruptive moments are actually an invitation to something much greater.
Yeah.
A chance to tap into a level of peace and purpose that we might otherwise miss. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep listening for those whispers of wisdom, no matter what time of day or night they might arrive.
Yeah, it's definitely food for thought.
So to wrap up this whole fourth watch conversation,
Uh-huh.
what would you say is the most important thing for our listeners to remember? Like, what's the one thing they should take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that waking up between 3 and 5 a.m. doesn't have to be a curse.
Okay.
It can actually be a calling. A calling to deeper spiritual connection and a more intentional life.
Okay, I like that. So it's not just about like banishing demons or whatever.
Yeah, right.
It's about using this time to really connect with something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the potential of those quiet hours and transforming what might seem like a disruption into a source of strength and guidance.
Okay, so just to recap one more time, what are the 3 key steps we talked about for making the most of this fourth watch experience?
The 3 steps are pray fervently, fellowship with God, and speak life into your day.
And remember, those steps are most powerful when they're grounded in a life that honors God right.
That's right.
So it's not just about what we do during those early hours, but about how we live our lives as a whole.
Exactly. It's about aligning our inner world with our outer world.
Okay, so final thought for our listeners before we wrap up.
Sure.
What's the one thing you'd want them to walk away pondering?
I think I'd leave them with this quote from C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, so maybe these 3 a.m. wake-up calls that seem so disruptive are actually preparing us for something amazing.
It's like those early morning hours are a training ground for a more fulfilling and purposeful life.
Precisely.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the mysteries of the Fourth Watch.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating conversation.
Thanks for joining me on this journey.
It's been my pleasure.
And to everyone listening out there, we hope this exploration has given you some new insights and maybe even inspired you to set your alarm a little earlier.
Who knows what you might discover?
Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and keep exploring the hidden depths of your own spiritual journey.